Yo, so what did you think that day when you woke up and saw that Joe Biden went on Charlemagne's podcast and said, if you don't vote Joe Biden, you ain't black?
I was at my I was in my house and my sister was like, I just saw Joe Rogan. I'm sorry. I just saw Joe Biden. Joe Biden say that if you ain't voting for me, you ain't black. And I'm like, what? And I like quick went on YouTube and watched it. And I was like, how can you be so entitled and then just have no reference for who you are to the point where
Dude,
you're able to say something like that blatantly.
throughout the entire interview, he was making that voice that really, 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 really white people use when they want to seem like black. Did you watch any of it?
Yeah, I watched it. I watched like half of it.
He was like, "Hey, man, are we in the trap right now?" Like stuff like that.
Yeah,
Like making that voice.
You
Yeah,
can
and
tell.
then he's
It's like people at like at a
yeah,
party, you see like the one black kid walk in,
he's
everyone
just
starts acting
he's so
differently.
awkward in conversation in general. Like talking to anybody. At one point during the interview with Charlemagne, he's like, "Black people are getting killed out here. Killed." And I'm like, "Dude, stop. You don't got to yell." It's such a weird flow because I don't think he has the ability to really
And it's
have
taken away
a
from, and it's taken away
conversation.
votes from me.
Yeah. And then when Charlemagne says
Yeah,
to
it's so
him,
bad.
he's like, "No, I want something for my community." Joe Biden's like, "Well, you could compare my record to anybody." He just like totally ignored it. I like
Yeah. I think me and you both agree on this. Like identity politics and all that stuff is completely nonsense and it just is a waste of time and a distraction. But then it comes
yeah.
to a point where you have to have integrity. You know, I see, and then you see Joe Biden lie about having been endorsed by the NAACP, and you're like, how do you lie about something so blatantly, obviously not true, and then expect me to believe you when you say other things? It's like a trust thing. I don't
Got
trust him
arrested in
at
apartheid. He
all.
got arrested seeing Nelson Mandela. He used to lie about that a lot.
He plagiarized at Crapton back in his early
Well,
Senate
back
days.
in the day, he's been a slimy politician his entire life. And he's had what, two brain aneurysms, which I think both of them were connected to some type of cocaine addiction because that's what his son's on. That's what a lot of powerful people are on. Trump, you see him sniffing Adderall or whatever. You see him during the big debates, like yeah, like you saw the clips
Yeah.
of him doing that. But overall, Joe Biden in this situation, it's like saying the quiet part out loud, like, "Joe, don't say that. Don't say that. I mean, that's what we mean, but don't actually say that," because they use
Yeah.
tokenism to control people. Like, "Oh, look, we have a black lady here. That means we are fighting for you."
Mm-hmm. We're in this weird political era where the people that are representing both parties are so blatantly just outward with everything that's wrong with everything that it's like how it's so easy now to point everything that's wrong because it's you can't be any more obvious with Trump or Biden. I mean, you see Trump saying, "Oh yeah, we were going to leave Afghanistan, but we have troops there for the oil." He just comes out and says it. You know,
Yeah, he's like, "Whatever."
you have instances like that where it's like, okay, if we don't step up, if we don't change it, it's our fault. It's completely our fault. Everything is the cards are on the table. We need to just act, and we're not. And people are just kind
Yeah.
of like, falling in line.
I'll tell you what, though, when I saw that he said that, I was like, okay, well, that means Stacey Abrams is going to be the pick. Because after saying that, if you pick Amy Klobuchar as your nominee, or you don't pick someone who is a woman
Kamala
of
Harris.
color, Kamala Harris, I don't think she plays well, but I mean, he has to pick either her. There's a couple other options that fit that category, but like after that, it would imagine Amy Klobuchar. That'd be way worse than Tim Kaine.
Yeah, it's
I
almost
hate her.
it's almost though it's like, how many missteps can Joe Biden take until it seems like he's matching with Trump, and he keeps doing it. It's like, well, it
Just
can't be
hide
worse
him.
than Trump, and he just keeps doing them.
Yeah,
And
it's just hilarious that we got someone who is literally like an animated corpse out there. We're like anybody can beat Trump, so we're gonna pick the absolute worst option. Like Joe Biden, I think,
yeah,
is way worse than even Hillary was.
that's an interesting conversation to have. I mean, Hillary Hillary was at least competent. You kind of see how it was right after Barack Obama's presidency. People still believed in the idea of Obama being who he was, at
Mm,
least to a certain extent. And there's a lot of reasons why Trump won, but I don't think if you swap out Joe and Hillary in 2016, you see any different result. And now you see the same thing happening now, where people are like, "This is a safe option." And we've been saying this since October, but like, how could you not see that that's not the safe option when we just ran that experiment? Doesn't make any
Yeah.
sense.
Yeah, we've been talking about this for so long. It got so exhausting. We were happy for a little bit there, thinking we had a chance
Yeah.
to not have a terrible candidate, but we got stuck here again. At least like Hillary, she could sit there for hours and speak for that friggin' Benghazi uh, investigation or whatever, that testimony that she had to do. She was there for hours. If Joe Biden had to speak for more than 5 minutes in front of a camera, he would probably reveal our nation's like deepest secrets accidentally and then try to lie about them and then probably say some type of like racial slur by accident, and the media would still cover up for him.
Yeah, honestly. And we keep having this conversation about, should we vote for him or not? We've been talking about this for a while. I know you put out a segment talking about how bad Trump is and how important it is to get him out of office, and you kind of
But also
that.
Biden's like,
Yeah, exactly. You don't really know what to do. But then Joe Biden seems to have he doesn't make us make that tough choice because he tells us what to do. He tells us what to do. He said, if you believe Tara Reid, then don't vote for him. So
don't
thank
vote
you,
for
Joe.
me.
I don't have to
Joe
worry about it
Biden.
anymore. I won't vote for you then because I believe
He's been
Tara
saying that
Reid.
the entire time. Anybody who wants anything from Joe Biden needs to shut up, get out of the way. If you're a climate protester, go vote for Trump. If you're a person that's complaining about him and Obama putting immigrants in cages, oh, go vote for Trump. That's what he's been saying to people. That person in the factory, the union worker in the factory that Joe Biden has had his finger up to. And he said, I don't work for you. And what did he call him again? I forgot what he called the union worker in the factory in like Detroit. I think you remember that, right? That when he went
I
there
remember
and he
that
was like,
instance.
but like he expects everyone to vote for him. He comes from such a privileged position, and then he gets really confused when you say to him that people disagree with him and that he's not a shoo-in. And it's really just a metaphor for what's happening with the entire political establishment right now. Like Joe Biden, him not being able to speak and him being such a faltering character, I think represents where the Democratic Party in general is going. It's ready to collapse, in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, we see that right now where a large percentage of people that voted for Bernie are considering voting third party now. And
Yeah.
did you know the exact percentage? But either way,
Yeah, there's 50%. I think it's half and half. Half are considering it, but they're probably still going to vote for Biden like by an 80% margin.
But still, that 20% threshold, whatever's left over, if they all consolidate around one candidate, that could be huge. That could change the outline for not only the presidential landscape, but along the Congress and the Senate and state legislators all across the nation. And I think it's really unlikely that a viable third party comes out of this. But if we move towards maybe ranked choice in some areas, like we could,
definitely.
We could see that shift happen.
And mail-in voting too.
Mail-in voting is huge. I mean, you saw Trump even said it, how much that would hurt the Republican Party.
Dude, I hate when he lies about that, dude. It pisses me off. That there's fraud about it, that it's like that the Democrats are going to fake the vote somehow. When we vote right now on computer machines from literally the 1970s, and they could easily be hacked. And there's an option that we have where people can vote from home. It would drive up turnout. It would leave a paper trail, and Trump is creating conspiracy theories about it. If I try to tell somebody like, hey, Oregon and Washington have had mail-in ballots for a long time, and the two mail elections since Trump started this conspiracy had two Republicans win. So it just is so annoying to see that.
Yeah, and you see Tulsi's pretty much the only candidate talking about it, and you also have the idea that a 9-year-old was able to hack all 4 of the different voting machines that we use right now. So, I mean, the threat to our democracy is so clear, and no one seems to really acknowledge it.
Yeah, thanks, JS fan. So yes, Joe Biden said you're full of shit to that union worker, which is absolutely just great, and it's awesome. It's amazing the position we're put in, the great position right now where we either go and vote for Biden, because we're in Pennsylvania. So our vote actually like matters. If we were in like New York or California, no question, I wouldn't be voting for Joe Biden. I would be voting third party. But that's the only reason that we have to consider, going against everything we believe in,
Yeah.
you know.
And then people in 2016, they didn't stop talking about it. Trump is a horrible person. Look what he does to women. Look at how horrible his record is. Look at his entitlement. Look at his privilege. And now we have someone who's all of those things, and they don't say anything about it. They don't say a single thing.
Yep, and people want someone who will fight for them. And Donald Trump is using the fascist mentality of telling people, the fake populist mentality, whatever you want to call it, where he tells people like, the system's screwing you over, I'm going to protect you. But he still keeps on transferring wealth to the top 1% and everything. And we could have had somebody who is actually clean in politics to expose him as an insider. But now, again, Donald Trump can play the outsider role, which is, this is the age of populism. That's what people want. I'm not sure people have seen enough fundamental change as a result of Trump to not vote for him.
Yeah. Yeah, honestly. I mean, if he goes with the Make America Great Again, and he goes with that, and he says, "Look we need 4 more years." This
Keep
is all
America
Nancy. If this is all Nancy Pelosi's fault and Chuck Schumer's fault, they're getting in my way. The fake impeachment, all of that. We were talking so much. Remember, we were talking about this like glory days back when we were watching the debates, watching Bloomberg get slaughtered, thinking that Bernie was going to win. And then we watched Pete Buttigieg. Oh my God, Pete Buttigieg. He dropped out. Amy Klobuchar dropped out. Oh no. They're endorsing. And that was a collapse. We had a chance there, and it fell through. But
I mean, there's a reason there's such a big disconnect between Bernie voters, progressives, and the DNC, on top of all the other stuff. When Bernie Sanders was in the lead of the primary situation, remember what happened? Iowa. I guarantee that was purposeful. Bernie Sanders was going to win Iowa. They purposely delayed the results for weeks, ruining the positive media that Bernie would have gotten. That was absolutely disgusting. They basically lied about votes, giving votes to Deval Patrick and Tom Steyer in certain districts. They did everything they could to manipulate the media story, which is what matters. Because, I mean, you could see easy points in history where media matters. Donald Trump got a bunch of free press in 2016. Joe Biden got over $100 million in free advertising revenue, or free advertisements and positive media coverage after his South Carolina win. It's a big deal. And when Bernie was in the lead, they said, guess what? If he wins, goes to the nomination or goes to the convention, we're going to steal the nomination from him. We're going to overturn democracy. And when you're watching these debates, the whole crowd is full of billionaires, millionaires, the powerful people in society. You go to the commercials, you're getting gum commercials, not cum commercials, and and you're getting anti-Medicare for all commercials as well. So that's on top of everything else. That's a big disconnect that they have, and they don't get it.
I think it's kind of ridiculous that the debates are even on private corporations to begin with, to make money, to be profited off of, but that's a whole nother conversation.
Yeah. Idiots. They should just be talking on stage, unmoderated. One guy to present questions, or one woman to present questions, not a bunch of people yelling over each other to try to get their 20-second, sound bites in.
Yeah. I like what the Republicans did, where they split up into 2 days, because you didn't have so many people on one stage.
Yeah, we did that too when we had 20 candidates.
Yeah,
that was really
they had
fun
like
too.
They had like the little kid table and like the main show. So it was like Trump, Ted Cruz, whoever else was at the time, like the Marco Rubio, and then they had like all the people that weren't going to win in the second one.
Yeah. If you really think about what happened in the last year, when you consider the ups and downs, Bernie Sanders' heart attack, they said the entire summer he had no chance to do anything. He has the heart attack, comes back, AOC endorses him, and you really just have this storybook aspect to it. You see like this movement in action, and you think that there's a possibility that we finally are able to get some type of change. And that's what we've been going through the past like year. And if you look back to what we were thinking, even before we had to go back from Corona, even mid-February, everything was so cool. Right before Super Tuesday, like the whole political world has been shifted. And now all you see from people who do like the presumptive, or not the presumptive nominee, Joe Biden, you see them saying, I know he wasn't your first choice. He might not have been your fifth choice. I don't like him either, but you got to vote for him because you can't vote for Trump. And it's so twisted. And it's,
Yeah. I've heard you make this point before in the past where us as progressives, and I fully agree with this, us as progressives, we don't have the media, we don't have the resources, we don't have Wall Street, we don't have any of the funding. We have all just grassroots campaign and our vote. That's all that we have. We don't have anything else. And those things should be sacred to us, and we should not be throwing them away. We should not be using that and just giving it to whatever the Democrats decide to put up, because eventually it's going to run out, and they're going to just assume that we're going to just comply. Well, we need to show them that we're willing to not comply, and we're willing to take a principled stance for what we believe in.
mm,
And
yeah.
I just don't think that Joe Biden is doing anything for my issues. Maybe he's doing better than Trump on some, but he's not doing anything. He's saying he'd veto Medicare for all. He's saying, he's now just coming around to raise the minimum wage. He's doing bare minimum climate change. I
But
need to
the
see
task forces, AOC and John Kerry, are going to work together to save the planet with the climate change task force. And if you don't think that's going to work, then you must watch Fox News, because you're obviously just a belligerent child who is mad your guy didn't win the primary, and you have to shut up and stop crying about it. Wipe up your little progressive tears and vote for Joe Biden this November, because Uncle Joe is going to lead our nation back on the right path.
Yeah,
oh my God.
You young kids just want to make $15 an hour while you scoop ice cream and
you want to work at McDonald's and try to make more than like poverty. Like, seriously, are you kidding? You want the same healthcare system the rest of the world has, and we can't get it because our government is controlled by corporations.
You want your kids not to swim to school?
You want your kids not to swim to school? No.
How dare you?
How dare you want anything good? I mean, free public colleges and university, that's like candy. It's pie in the sky. I know every other country in the world has it, but somehow, being the most powerful and richest country, we can't do it. It just doesn't make sense. We can't afford it. And to be honest, I don't think Americans are smart enough. Like, that's the kind of stuff they say. It's so...
Yeah. There's definitely going to be some type of uprising. I mean, as soon as we're allowed to come out of our houses, we're probably going to be seeing a lot of people on the streets.
Well, that's another good topic, though, because there's a lot of people out right now, especially after Memorial Day. It's getting nicer out, and the coronavirus thing is spreading a lot less than before. And I think it has something to do with the heat, although some studies say otherwise. And South America is a big point where things are becoming consumed by coronavirus, and it's obviously pretty hot and humid in South America. But are you seeing people, like, when you're out, actually taking good precautions and wearing masks, or do you see people just like, screw it, I'm not doing that government bullshit?
You see, we're in Pennsylvania, obviously. I mean, I see a lot of people, like, if we go to the grocery store and stuff, everyone's wearing masks and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. I went to the park earlier today. I didn't see that many people wearing masks or anything like that, but we're outside, so I guess it's different.
Yeah, that's different. No,
I talked to my aunt who lives in Tennessee, and she said nobody, like, it's like 50-50 chance people are wearing it. If that, people aren't really complying. People don't think it's really that big of a deal. You can see, like, the cultural shift. If you don't trust government when it comes to like feeding your family, or when it comes to making regulations that make sense, would you trust them to save your life when it comes to coronavirus?
I just think it's funny, the concept of freedom people have. But, like, I saw this lady, and she was walking into this pizza place. She wasn't the most flattering or cleaned up person in the world. She touches the doorknob. She's not wearing a mask, opens it up, goes inside, takes that same hand and puts it directly in her mouth. And that reminded me that even when corona's over, I am gonna make sure I'm more clean, because people
Yeah.
really aren't hygienic. People don't take care of themselves. In Florida, no trumpets are wearing masks. You know what? Florida is an interesting case because they said they were going to be absolutely terrible because of all the spring breakers and all that. And we did not see like a huge spread there, but there's also a big effort by the state government to cover up the actual amount of cases and how many deaths there are. So they're essentially doing what we were crying about China doing. Like we're fudging the numbers as well. I don't know if you heard anything about that.
Yeah, I know there's just some stuff going on here in Pennsylvania where the State Department is not putting out the numbers for the number of people that
Mhm.
die in nursing homes
Yeah.
because they don't want people to think that it's just a young person disease.
Uh,
They're not releasing the information, which makes sense, but they're not you know jipping the numbers in any way, manipulating them. How do you feel about that? Do you think they should release that information to the public? What percentage of people are dying in nursing homes? What the
well,
numbers
people
are?
can't handle the numbers we are getting because this is a complex thing when you're keeping track of data throughout all these different healthcare systems. And, throughout the whole state, we have like what, 14 million people in PA. I forget how many people are here, but it's a complex thing. And they changed how they're counting the numbers. So like if you live in a home in Northumberland County where I live, but you die like at that home, but your permanent residence is in Schuylkill County, then the deaths were counted either or, but they like adjusted it so different deaths were counted for different areas. And people saw these numbers moving, and their instant reaction was, well, there's the conspiracy. The government is lying about COVID-19 deaths. 100,000 deaths. I think there's only 20,000. So like there's this cognitive dissonance because you give them an inch, you give them any type of statistical error, they're going to take the whole thing and say there's a big conspiracy about it. And I'm sure you're getting
Yeah.
less of that where you are because you live in a more liberal area. But I live in the heart of Trump country, and multiple businesses around here aren't wearing masks. The people working in them, people don't believe it's a real thing, and it didn't get here yet, so we didn't feel the wrath of it. So people are just like, "Oh, it's not real."
Yeah, I mean they're gonna live the rest of their lives thinking, "Oh, you remember that fake coronavirus thing?" Like
Yeah,
they're never gonna really realize like that it was a real threat, real issue.
it's absolutely crazy, and it seems sort of sociopathic in nature when you look at 100,000 people dead and you don't really care. Like we see these mass demonstrations for a school shooting that killed 10 people, and I hate these comparisons, like what events kill different people. But this is a vicious thing, and how you die from it is absolutely brutal. And the process that your family members have to go through, they can't see you as you're dying from it. They can't hold a funeral for people who die from it and people who died during the pandemic. And I
Mm-hmm.
understand that part of the reason is it's not penetrated everywhere. It's a long, drawn out process. This tragedy is this pandemic. So it's like a slow trickle of deaths instead of like something that's really dramatic. There was no big bombing. There was no big shooting. There was nothing to compare to Hollywood. So people don't know how to put their minds in that, mindset to be emotional about it and care about it. And I'm not sure if we're just becoming so sociopathic as a country or what, because it is hard to visualize 100,000 people dead if you did not like firsthand have someone die from it.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, you see things, people getting more distances as well. People being stuck inside, all that is taking a huge role on people's mental health, for sure. I mean,
Mhm.
you have people doing virtual funerals now. Like you're not even able to pay full respects to the person who passed away.
Mhm.
It's just so like gut wrenching. Like thinking about like what would I do in that situation? Like you can't even imagine. Like you're trying
Mhm.
to mourn like someone you care about, like whether it be like a grandparent or a parent, and then
Yeah.
whoever really.
And
And
this is like the worst thing for Americans to handle because the whole goal of what we're doing as like younger people and even anyone below 40, I know there are cases where people die from that, but the issue we're having right now is it's invisible and we're trying to protect other people other than ourselves. and people don't really like that mentality. It's like, if I'm not protecting myself with a mask, why am I wearing it? And then if they have corona, they are asymptomatic or they just don't care.
Yeah, definitely see some people saying like, you know, my area is probably a little bit better than yours, but it's not perfect. You see people saying like, oh, it's my freedom, it's my right not to wear a mask. It's like, yeah, I'm not gonna like arrest you, but you do know like people that you might not know necessarily are at risk could face like death because of your decision if you
Yeah.
don't.
Just like Nikolai said, if I said that right, it's all black people dying from the virus. And I live somewhere where there's no black people at all. I mean, there's old people who are alcoholics who smoke too much and they eat poorly. The air conditions here are terrible. So if it actually got here, they would die a lot. But the deaths are mostly from New York City, from, Detroit, and very specific hotspots where COVID-19 spread. So, and I don't know if LA got hit that hard. I'm not sure what's happening on that side of the country, but
Los Angeles is a lot more spread out. They don't live on top of each
population
other.
density is a big factor
Yeah.
in how this spreads. In New York City, that's one of the largest areas in the world when you talk, the economy, the GDP, and you talk population. Like New York City should be its own country if you compare it globally.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of insane how much economic production you get out of there and how many people are just living on top of each other. But what do you think about going back to school in August?
Yeah, I saw you talking about this with Andrew too. I mean, I'm like on a like a personal standpoint,
Yeah.
I'm trying not to think about it because I think that I'm just going to keep moving along either way.
Yeah.
But when it comes to me looking at it logically, I think there's going to be some type of movement towards school, but I don't think it's going to be it's not going to be normal. Either we're only sending half the population, all the options like you said, either sending just the seniors
Yeah,
and
like certain
juniors,
majors.
yeah, certain majors, whatever it is. But political science, we're going to be the last ones that are really going to be thinking about English majors and not going to think about them.
Yeah.
You need to have you're going to need the STEM people that are doing labs and being engaged with the professor. It's a
Yeah.
lot harder to learn at home, I found. For
Yeah,
sure.
yeah. I hope they have different grading standards for us. I mean, it would just suck being stuck at home after you're paying for this experience. They should definitely like reduce tuition or something. But there's no way you could socially distance inside of a freaking hall
Yeah, no.
that we'd be living in. 20 people to a bathroom. You're living with somebody. And how are we going to run cross country races with 500 people in it if we can't, keep a social
Yeah,
distance?
we never know, like things are starting to open up, like the whole state's going to turn
Things
like
are
what is it?
looking good.
Things are starting to open up like the entire state of Pennsylvania is supposed to
Yeah.
go on like the yellow version, whatever, like start to open up.
Yeah,
So
we're in yellow right now. Soon is going to be everyone yellow. And then
yeah.
next, I think June 5th, counties are starting to go into green.
Yeah, I think we're still red. I'm not exactly sure, but I
Yeah.
think that we're still in May. So we could see a huge shift by like the 4th of July where things are kind of being a little bit more vibrant. We could end up going back. We don't really know. A lot of
Yeah.
time is between now and then.
And different colleges are doing after Thanksgiving. You just go for Thanksgiving break and then you don't come back to campus, which I think is actually a good idea
Either
because it
way.
seems the nature of the virus is that it will spread a lot more in the winter and during colder months in general. So if that's true, if we can get like a situation where you have to report when you're on campus and when you leave campus and come back, and when you come back, you have to make sure you weren't around anybody who has any symptoms. And if you were, you have to get like tested. If we have readily available testing, we
By
can
then,
create
sure.
a campus environment that's sort of like locked off from the rest of the population. You know what I mean? We could create a campus environment where it's just us intermingling with other students and make sure that no one comes in, no one goes out. Kind of like it's kind of like a weird like utopia village or something.
Yeah, E-Town, the utopia of the world.
Yeah,
I
but
can
I
see that
mean,
happening.
our college has been so bad reacting to this. I mean, you would think you have all these connections all over the world. You have all these smart people. You would think you would know not to send your students home at the last possible date, right before a pandemic breaks out. You would think that they would make a smarter decision than that, but
I know.
it seems like they wait till the last second.
And now we're stuck with all of our stuff there.
Yeah, did you get a date to go back?
Yeah, I'm going back a month from like a month actually.
Yeah,
And
June 5th I can go.
yeah, I got the email later than you did, I guess, but still, it's like, so my RA was even saying like, oh, I think we might come back. Like, I think we might come back, and I'm like,
Mhm.
People, it was so up in the air at that point. Like, they should have just told us,
Yeah.
back to stay home.
Yeah, leave. You would think that these smart people would know, and it's really
I mean,
weird.
they knew as much information as we did.
Well, I knew more than they did, I think, because I saw the coronavirus popping up in China. I saw the rate of spread in January, and I said this is going to be a big issue, but I didn't really care as much because it was in China. So I just said Bernie Sanders needed to use it as a political reason for Medicare for all, because you need a universal healthcare system so people aren't scared to get checked out by the doctor. That's like a pandemic defense system. If everybody can get access, or not access, but if everybody has available healthcare, access to healthcare doesn't mean shit. But access, free
Affordable,
healthcare.
free, universal.
Affordable is what they say when they're like, we all need access to affordable healthcare. They just mean, well, you can buy this healthcare if you can afford it.
Yeah, it's like, yeah, it's affordable if you invested in Apple when it was worth 30 cents. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's affordable then.
But what about our professors and stuff? Because they're old.
Yeah, that's definitely a concern that is in the back of my head. I don't know how likely it is that our professors choose to partake in this upcoming semester. That's up to them. I think that it should be a personal choice if they decide that they don't want to risk what they want to risk, but that's of course up to them.
They say we're gonna have socially distanced classes, which, I mean, it doesn't make sense. The rest of the class, like, it's college. People are gonna be partying still. People are gonna be doing recreational activities that they shouldn't be doing. They are gonna be doing, hookup culture is a big thing. That's the reason things like SED spread so much, because people don't give a crap about these rules. People don't give a crap about the effects of it. Yeah. So I don't think it's even realistic to hold them to that standard. Your college is just watching YouTube videos.
That's of course a big concern, is people aren't going to comply with the rules once they get that, like you said, that 1 inch. This is a different thing, but like that 1 inch, the door's wide open. I guarantee you, as soon as our state goes yellow, everyone's going to be going to parties. Everyone's going to be going to meet up with their friends, go hang out.
There's an 80-person Memorial Day party near where I am, so people are already out there getting lit. The fireworks were canceled for my hometown, and people were really mad about that, talking about like, welp, they already took our freedoms. We might as well not celebrate them. Like, so dramatic. It's kind of funny.
Like, our freedoms weren't taken away by the Patriot Act by,
dude, literally throughout this whole crisis, they approved the Patriot. Like, they could have denied it, but Bernie Sanders wasn't there for the 60th vote. But that clause in the Patriot Act where they have more power to look through our internet search history, and people didn't even look at it. There's companies right now stealing our information from our social media pages. Terms and conditions let them do that. There's companies, if you have a private Instagram account, or a public Instagram account, and you post a picture of you wearing a face mask, they're using the pictures of you to train their facial recognition services. So like, if you have a public Instagram, then there's a big database with a picture of you in there even before this, and they're using your face without your consent. And that's a big thing Andrew Yang brought up, is controlling our data rights and controlling the information that's being sold for more than oil is worth around the world right now.
And it's not a big, like, conspiracy theory like Alex Jones thing. It doesn't need to be. It's very blatantly obvious. You can see it's in the policy that the legislation that they're passing. And
We're gonna have
people
a
are saying,
trillionaire.
exactly. We have so many big problems with this. Our information is so valuable, and we're not even considering it as a thing in our lives.
Yeah, we need to. I don't know what your position on this would be. I don't like the idea of breaking up big tech companies with our current government because I think they don't know how to do it. But a search engine like Google, which is pretty much the only medium that people use it on, like as far as search engines go, Bing and Yahoo probably have about 1% of the market share. But that means Google has all of our information. We have no position to sort of negotiate how our information is handled. I think if we split up a company like Google and we had an option to maybe pay for a service and in return they wouldn't steal our data, or maybe you could have Bing and Google and one of those two, you could control where your data goes, or they'll actually pay you for using that search engine. I feel like we need some type of solution like that in order to control our own data because our government is so dysfunctional. I don't know what they could feasibly pass right now.
Yeah, I think that I think Sam Harris talks about this a lot. Is the idea of paying for the services that you use. Everyone's so used to everything being free, and I think that we could maybe move in this direction where you pay for Netflix, but you don't pay for YouTube. But then you don't realize that Google is using you as a product through the advertisement. Facebook the same way. I think that I would definitely move. I would much rather move towards that direction if things were more affordable, prices were lower. I'd rather pay whatever it is a month to use this without my data being used poorly. And someone said Amazon should be broken up. That
should be
that or being like be a public utility. They're already taking advantage of the post office to a certain extent anyway. You might as well just take them.
Oh, you're still here. Oh, there you go. It's working again. But Amazon definitely needs to be broken up because they're at the point of exponential growth where they could literally own like 30% of our government in like 10 years or even more of a share. And that's really threatening for democracy. And I'm trying to get all these people that are pretending to care about freedom because they have to wear masks to Costco to realize there is no freedom if we don't control our own government, because we need a strong government to protect our own people, to give us positive freedom. We don't need freedom from government. We need freedom provided by a government that's controlled by us. And, did you see the post that showed America's billionaires had their wealth increased by $256 billion since the beginning of this pandemic?
Yeah. I mean, that is just, if there's anything that can show you how messed up our system is, it's that. I mean, at a time where people aren't even getting universal basic income to feed their family, these people are increasing their wealth. And I understand, like, it's their net worth, it's not, but still, like, they have a share portfolio where they're able to exploit the market and get so much money based off of what? Off of what are they doing? They're doing nothing. Meanwhile, you have people risking their lives, putting food on the shelf for people to buy, and they can't make ends meet. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, and we're having a bunch of jobs lost right now that won't come back. Obviously, we're going to need some type of income to give to people that isn't just above poverty. The new world with automation should produce enough so that everybody could live comfortably, or the entire, concept of modern capitalism is completely off. If we can't have a system where automation and all of our advancements creates prosperity for everybody, then this entire system needs to be abandoned before we go too far down that path, and workers are just in the end treated like animals that they don't need anymore.
Yeah, I mean, we already see that happening. You don't even need to. We already see that happening with Amazon. There's a guy that has a heart attack on the floor. They don't even call an ambulance. It's cheaper for them to buy to hire an ambulance to sit outside of their headquarters or their warehouse instead of increasing the air conditioning. That is already happening. You are simply a number on a machine when you work for Amazon, and they're replacing jobs that would have been much more higher paying, much more, the conditions are much better, and somehow Amazon's a job creator. It doesn't
Oh
make any
yeah,
sense.
Amazon. The big argument for Walmart and Amazon, they're job creators. But my experience with my economic knowledge and my local economies, as like I could understand what's happening as a result, the carrying capacity for my local economy has been reduced drastically. And when I say carrying capacity, it's how many businesses we can house with the amount of income that's here. Because in like they talk about circular model in economics, like a circular model of like from consumer to producer back into the community.
Mhm.
Um, and Walmart and Amazon, they create leaks in that cycle. So every time someone puts a dollar into Amazon or Walmart, money leaks out of our local community. And we're seeing that happen at such an alarming rate right now that businesses can't open. These old family businesses that used to provide good lives for people, it provided purpose for people. It provided buildings that were going to be maintained in my community. All of these things are being basically sucked dry from Amazon and Walmart. And every poor community has a Walmart right outside of it that came and devoured the poor people. And one of Walmart's biggest profits is off of welfare and food stamps. So
Mhm.
there's like this vicious cycle happening here.
You see where people. You already know this, but
Charles
you know
Darwin.
you go to work for Walmart. You get paid $7.50 or $10, whatever it is. You don't get enough money to feed your family. You go to welfare to make ends meet. What does that mean
Mhm.
for Walmart? Walmart is using public money to
Yep.
make ends meet for your customers because they refuse to pay you enough so that you have to rely on public services, and that takes money away
Yep.
from the taxpayer, the middle class, and the rich get richer, the poor get poorer, and the middle class gets pushed to the side. And that is always going to be the way that things work.
Well, with an
That's,
application, they hand you your form to apply for Medicaid and your form to apply for any other subsidy you might need from the federal or state government. They hand you those papers when you sign up for the job. And the thing that pisses me off is all these people are falling into these culture wars that are started by the people at the top. Like Donald Trump is starting a culture war with opening up churches already because he wants to say churches are essential, but they're not. It goes against the science. They can do that with telecommunications. He creates a culture war with it. We're too busy crying about the face masks and making jokes about that, going back and forth, being mad at each other, instead of doing something we can all agree on, which is stopping Walmart from screwing over our people. It's bullshit that you apply for a job and you have to apply for Medicaid and welfare with it.
I know, and these people. I mean, as much as you might not be as obvious to somebody who is maybe upper middle class, but it is hard work to work in those jobs. I mean, me personally, I've never worked them, but I can acknowledge that it's just as hard to do that as what we're doing right now, or whatever career we could do moving forward. You know, but for some reason, it's not valued as much. It's like
Mhm.
what happens when those people stop doing their job? People stop eating. People stop feeding their families.
Yeah.
That's why they're essential. They're essential, but yet they get paid crumbs. Doesn't make any
In
sense.
Europe, they are laughing. What are these Americans doing? Yeah, I
We don't
compare
even
it
have a
to
UBI.
we don't have any. No, well, nowhere has a true UBI, but I compare working a job at like a Walmart or an Amazon inside a factory sort of to running, because I'm not sure if you ever heard something like this. We're both runners, but people always go up and cheer for the really fast runners, the people that run around the track really fast. They win the race. They're done first. They've trained a lot for this. They have it in their legs to propel themselves to that point. And I compare that to like an Amazon or a Walmart, or I compare that to a job that you might get with a college degree. My bad. It's that person who finishes first, who runs around the track
Yeah,
super fast. But the real person you should be applauding in running is the person who
who
might not
finishes
be in
one.
good shape, who is slow, who is out there for a lot longer running, pushing themselves harder than you are. And I think that's what we have with like Amazon and Walmart workers. They might not be working the same skilled positions that they require a degree for, but they're working just as hard, if not, and most of the time, they are working harder.
Exactly. And without those slower people, the fast people don't have anyone to run against. So what are you
Yeah.
gonna? They rely on them.
Yeah.
And
And we're going to get to the point where all the jobs for those poor people are going to be gone. So what's going to happen if we don't implement some type of UBI, some type of local jobs program that provides a foundation that the free market simply can't do?
There are two options. You either do it preemptively, you let it happen naturally, you let the political process take its course, and you implement these things, or you see massive revulsion and revolution and things that you don't want to see. And I'm against
Well,
violence to my core, and that's why I'm advocating. I'm trying to make this clear. Like, we need to do this before people start going to the streets and making
yeah.
problem.
And that's the role of people who are controlling a society. Like in the years leading up to the 1900s French Revolution, they had a mockery of what democracy should be, but it was something. It was really incremental, and the elites in society were focused on giving as little to the people as they could without the people rebelling. But eventually, the people realized it was a fake democracy. They weren't really in control and they demanded more. But the upper people didn't know how to handle that influx of actual passion and a fight for revolution. So I think we're getting to that point in America right now where the top people are trying to give us just enough. So not enough people are pissed off enough to, revolt. I feel like that's the whole job of like a Nancy Pelosi, of anyone who like a Koch brother, anyone who plays a financial role in politics as well. Their number one job is to give us garbage and keep us content at that
Barack
same time.
Obama is the perfect.
Yeah.
Barack
Yeah.
Obama was the best at that. He
It's
still
like
is.
white moderate incrementalism. And they essentially, everyone is renting houses. Like all the younger people are renting houses. They aren't owning things. They aren't owning cars. I know we have iPhones and stuff now, but they essentially took our wealth and replaced it with commodity over time as our system progressed. You know what I mean by when I say that?
So, can you explain it a different way?
They like took actual ownership and wealth from us and handed us an iPhone instead. And we're like, wow, this is a nice iPhone. I have a flat screen in my house. That means I'm doing well because people 20 years ago didn't have a flat screen or
Oh,
a smartphone.
yeah, but you have
But
a phone that's going to go bad in 2 years, but you don't have anything tangible. Is that what you're
yeah,
saying?
like 20 years ago, they might not have had these technological advancements, but they had more power and democracy. They had ownership of their houses, they had
Yeah.
ownership of their cars. If you're renting anything, you are completely throwing money out the window. That's the worst thing you could ever do in life. If you get stuck in a cycle where you have to rent everything, then you're never going to accumulate any worth. And then therefore you have no political power and you have no power to build a foundation.
Yeah, then you walk around with a phone, which is just collecting all of your data. So people can screw you over even more when you go Google stuff and you go listening to you, all that stuff.
Oh no, Bill Gates, when he makes his vaccine, he's gonna put a tracking chip in my hand. How dare we have a tracking chip on us? Like, these people don't get it. Cry about the tracking chip, but then carry around your smartphone. It's really interesting how they do that.
Yeah. Yeah, we'll have to see specifically what's going to go on with that.
Dude, they could look through your photo right now. They could look through your cameras on Instagram and they could see that I'm drinking a water right now, a Deer Park water, and they could give me an advertisement based off of what the camera sees. It's really scary. Like when you
It's not
sign
a
on terms and
conspiracy.
conditions.
These are things that are you accept when you sign up for these things. And people think, we're
Mhm.
the water turned the frogs gay or whatever, But it's right there in front of you. People just don't even realize it.
If I DM you something on Instagram, they're allowed to look at what I sent you, search it up, create, add that to your database and put that into your ad searches. And people, I think, don't know that. We press yes on terms and conditions, but someday we're going to press yes on something that we can't go back on, I think, when there's a big data breach somewhere and no one is held liable or something, because people have a fundamental misunderstanding of freedom, and our politicians have a misunderstanding of what's happening, online and that kind of freedom. But my question is, even if our politicians weren't so bad at the modern world, you know, would they even try to improve these things? Is it even in their goal to improve these things? Or do they want us to keep falling into this cycle of being sheep waiting for, a hopeful revolution in society that's never going to happen forever?
I mean, that's what I kind of am concerned with that's what I'm kind of concerned with Bernie Sanders. I mean, he's not really making the decisions that we necessarily assumed he would make, the strong positions that we assumed he would follow through with. And it's concerning because it almost seems like Bernie was another sense of false hope where, we were so optimistic, like we were talking about earlier, and nothing really came out of it. Nothing tangible even came out of it. And he fell
You
in
can't
line.
break the game.
He fell in line so quickly. He fell in line so easily.
Yeah, and I thought that with Tulsi when she endorsed Biden, and Andrew Yang when he dropped out, joined CNN, endorsed Biden. But I know why he did that, because he needs to play the game in order to get universal basic income across, and he feels doing that is the best way he can accomplish the goal of getting a universal basic income and preparing us for the future of like automation and stuff. So it is depressing because that shows you can't get through this without playing the game first.
What would happen if he were to say on television exactly what we want to hear?
He'd be shut down. Every power in the world would shut him up. If we actually spoke truth to power with people right now that are powerful, like if we had Yang and Bernie saying exactly what they want to say, somehow they would exploit them and totally block them out of the situation. Like, I don't think
they have been blackmailed in some way,
There's, like, I don't know how we could have even pushed Yang further, because like after Obama calls you and tells you basically, if you don't drop out right now and endorse Biden, if you don't follow this game plan, then your political career is over. Once one of the most influential people on the planet tells you that, what do? How do you say no to that?
I mean, it's hard. It really is hard.
Yeah, Elizabeth Warren, dude. I love Elizabeth Warren, dude. I remember smearing Bernie as a fake sexist, and then completely ignoring every allegation towards Joe Biden. It was really interesting. Yeah, Yang has to play nice. Yeah,
I don't know. What do you? I mean, I don't want to have this conversation just as much as anyone else does. But what do you think about what the progressive movement is like going forward? Because Bernie's obviously, like people are saying right now in the comments, is going to be too old. Elizabeth Warren, like just said, is going to be complete sellout, flip flopping like no other.
I do think if Bernie was 60 years old right now instead of 80, then he would have kept fighting. But he's probably going to be leaving the earth soon, and he doesn't want to create a situation where Trump completely destroys what's happening and leaves us in gridlock for 50 years. So he thinks Joe Biden is the best way to delay the inevitable and maybe give a little bit more time to fight. I think if he's younger, he does keep on fighting. But yeah, I don't really know, because Bernie did his job. He served as the point of awakening. He's the catalyst for this entire generation, for this entire movement. When it comes down to anyone who is in a progressive organization right now, the reason like Andrew Yang ran is because of Bernie Sanders. He showed you could run a campaign without having to bow down to rich people, basically, and powerful people. So anyone who says something negative about Bernie or says he completely lost his credibility, I think they have a complete misunderstanding of the playing field we're in right now.
I mean, I would not. I mean, I don't know about you, but I wouldn't be in politics at all if it wasn't for Bernie. He was the only voice that really had any chance of motivating me in 2016, and same this year. I mean, with the exception of Andrew Yang, you really didn't see any true outsiders this time around besides him and Yang. Even with another 4 years to motivate people, Andrew was the only one that I could really point to and be like, that was a success. Maybe Tulsi moving down the line, we'll have to see how that works out. But
I wouldn't consider her campaign a success in any regard. She totally lost the public's opinion of her. She let the Hillary propaganda win over. I mean, she doesn't have much control over that. Bernie Sanders should have stepped up for her more than he did. But you're kind of reminding me of when I did find Sanders in 2016, because we were both, I was 16 and like a half. You were like probably 15 at that point because you're a year younger. But when you see in 2016 as a young person, you see the two nominees are going to be Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump. You look into it, you see what Hillary has done. You look at her net worth, all the money she made from politics, what she did in her involvement in politics. You see that she's a part of a dynasty. You see that there were 2 Bushes for president. You see that the Kennedys still have a major role in politics today. You see that Donald Trump is going to be the Republican nominee. And the other people up for the position were like Ted Cruz and Marco Rubio. You see this entire political process, and no one is addressing the needs of the people. And then you see this weird socialist guy, this old Jew from Vermont, and he's talking about universal health care and fighting for people. And even if you don't agree with universal health care, even if you didn't agree with any of his American far left, and I say American far left because it's regular everywhere else, even if you didn't agree with him, you respected the hell out of him and you listened to him because you knew that when he spoke about you, he gave a shit. He wasn't doing this political bullshit just to benefit himself. And I feel like that was such an amazing moment right there. And if you're going to take that away from Bernie because he dipped out and endorsed Biden now because he's freaking 80 years old, then again, you just don't get it.
Yeah. I know that people like to play. People that are progressives typically are more independent thinkers. People who, think for themselves, look at things objectively more often. I mean, this goes with any ideology, of course. There's people that are very thoughtful in what they believe, and they say things like, "Oh, people who support Joe Biden and people who support Hillary Clinton, they're just voting for someone who's on a team." And then when you start saying things about Bernie Sanders, like, "Oh, he's sold out," it's like, no, now you're doing the same thing that you were against. You are now playing for a team. You are now doing the same thing that you were against. Things are a lot more complicated than that. Things are a lot more nuanced than that. And yeah, do I think that Bernie Sanders could have made some more, in exchange for my endorsement, you have to do X, Y, and Z first before we do this fake stuff with the
get some form of Medicare for all, do some type of Green New whatever confirmation. Say you're gonna automatically do public universities, take some type of feasible position. Biden didn't even adapt to medical marijuana or recreational marijuana,
or let Bernie pick his VP pick, whatever it is. Whatever it is.
Yeah, that would have been great.
Whatever it is, he didn't make anything, and that's something that's legitimate criticism. But to say that he's sold out, that he's a complete punk, that's nonsense. That makes no. He's the only person we have right now. We should not be talking ill of him. I mean,
imagine if he didn't stand up in 2016. Where would we be right now, dude? More people would have voted for Gary Johnson, and we would still be crying about third parties not being involved. I mean, they're still not, but there's a big force on the outside ready for it now. We have a far right party, a center right party. If he didn't stand up in 2016, imagine where political discourse would have gone. Imagine how far right Biden's platform would be right now if Bernie Sanders never pushed Hillary left.
Bloomberg would be the nominee, and we'd have two Trumps.
David Duke would be the nominee for the Democratic Party at that point. If he didn't step in, and the distrust of the media we saw. Did you watch the Bernie Blackout documentary from Vox?
Vice or Vox?
Or no, it was Vice. It was Vice. Yeah, it was Vice. I need to watch that, but it's gonna be kind of like sad to watch it. It's like that one video made by Matt Orfala or whatever his name is, where it said "Rise up for Bernie." It showed all the media. It showed the disgusting things where they were saying about him, not policy disagreements, but character attacks, attacking his supporters, stuff like that. The media is absolutely, crooked, and that's a Trump term, but it's really hard to penetrate things because I go into a discussion with a Democrat and a Republican. They see themselves on two teams, and I try to tell them both that they're both wrong and they're both right in different areas, but both sides of our politics are sides that are portraying us that aren't working for us. And all of a sudden, in that conversation is the only time the Democrat and Republican decide to team up against me. And that's one of the big issues right now. People would rather defend the two-party system so they could keep their own biases than to open their minds and look for a third option, because that would mean they would have to destroy the mental model they've held in their heads since they were kids. You know, you're either a Republican or a Democrat. You have to be hyper polarized, and you could claim to work across the aisle, but it's not actually going to be feasible.
I always like that Cenk Uygur thing where it's like, if you see the Democrats and Republicans working together, they're probably working to screw you over.
Yeah, that's what I said in my Joe Biden video a while ago.
Yeah, it's the same thing.
Like, oh, I work with Republicans, but when you look back, he worked with Republicans to try to cut Social Security, to create more financial deregulation that fed into the 2008 recession, to create crime laws for the even most minor offenses that were brutal and authoritarian that we see carried out today still. That's when he worked with Republicans.
They didn't raise the minimum wage. No, they screwed you over. Spat in your face.
No minimum wage, no anything that we want other than far right and center right politics. But, you know, there's nothing actually for the people. There's no populism in our politics other than fascism and fake populism that we're seeing right now. And the big question is, how do you penetrate? Do you penetrate from the bottom at local levels? Do we have to switch state houses to be progressive and then move up to, you know, the House first, and then maybe the Senate, and then the presidency? Do you go the Bernie route, go from the top down? I mean, change never happens from the top.
I think that you got to do everything. You got to do that. You got to hit it from all angles. You just got to, I mean, progressive state houses. I like that idea.
Yeah, we'll get that done soon. A couple of years. No, yeah. But like, hopefully this all works out, you know, in the next few years and the country doesn't crumble. But it's going to be an interesting time. It's going to be really interesting. And that's like an existential conversation that I've been thinking about for the next couple of years.
The fact that we are about 20 years old right now, going into this crazy political era with our entire careers and lives ahead of us to try to make this happen.
And our careers are going to be right in the mix of it too.
Yeah, it's like, we're going to tell our kids, like, oh my God, you were 18. Who was president? Trump was president when you were.
Well, the thing is, what we do in the next couple of years is going to determine if I even have kids eventually. Because the way I'm looking at the world right now, but it's by the time we're 30, am I going to want to put kids into the world if I don't think it's stable enough for them? You know what I mean? Sort of.
Yeah, I see both sides. I used to have the perspective
climate too.
I used to have the perspective is like, you know, you see all the rich people having kids. All the rich people having kids.
Oh, yeah, but that's fine. They'll be in there. You know, you ever see the movie 2012 about the end of the world?
Yeah. They'll be in
Wall-E.
Like,
yeah, they have their escape pods. They all do. They have their bunkers. Did you see since COVID started, billionaire bunker sales went through the roof? Like, I shit you not. That's a real article.
I could believe it. But what I'm saying is, if we need a grassroots revolution, we're going to need some soldiers. Not soldiers in terms of like.
you're just trying to start a war. That's what you're doing.
No, I'm not saying soldiers in terms of. I mean like just fighters. I don't mean like.
No, we do need just an anti-establishment party. We need two anti-establishment parties, one for right-wing politics and one for left-wing politics. And we need both of those parties. So say like libertarians and Greens, although I don't like the idea of those two parties, they're both a mess. We need a new progressive party and a new libertarian right party that could be in a coalition. You know, when I say libertarian right, I mean like Goldwater Republican. We need that and then progressives to have sort of a coalition that's anti-establishment, where we agree that we're not going to go for stupid wars. We're not going to give huge bailouts or giveaways to corporations. We're not going to let the government be ran by money. We need people from the left and the right to band together behind that central idea. And I saw Bernie doing that to an extent with right-wingers. I definitely saw Andrew Yang doing that. You have to approach it like they do. Do it analytically. Show people the numbers. Show people how they're getting screwed over. And then through that entire process, create a transmission from, you know, we have to, you know, as the kids say, make people woke.
Yeah. Yeah. We don't need to work within the system. I think that at a certain point, we need to stop working within the system. It's everyone keeps having this conversation about Joe Biden or Trump and all that. It's like, I start to laugh. It's like, why are we even having this conversation? This is such a mundane issue. We should be talking about more important things.
Yeah.
You know?
Let's talk about what's actually going on. Let's not make it a culture thing. You know, it is a culture thing. It's either you like Trump or you hate Trump, or you're unlucky enough to be affected by his policies. Things like that. You might be a person of color that wants him out of office for obvious reasons. But in the end, you know, we have to bring everyone, we have to just open people's eyes one by one, because I think people think they disagree with us when they don't really disagree. Like I saw somebody say on a Facebook comment, all these companies moved overseas because Donald Trump is finally making them pay their fair share of taxes. And I thought that was really interesting because Donald Trump is taxing corporations at the lowest level in American history. And they think companies are leaving because Donald Trump is making them pay their fair share in taxes. But the funny thing is, that's a Bernie Sanders policy. And at the core of it, people just don't want to be screwed over. And they want jobs that give them a foundation to build a family, to build a life, to contribute to society, to their communities. And that makes them happy. And on that base level, it's really hard work what we're going to have to do in the next few years, but I definitely think it's possible.
For sure. I mean, I'm excited to see what ends up happening. You know, whether or not we're going to be at college or not to learn all this information ourselves, we're going to pick ourselves up and learn on our own.
YouTube is all you need.
It is. Honestly, it's a big factor. But
yep. All right. And bro.